So I don't know how well it's going to work, but since this little hammer that I got with the replaceable ends annoyed me on the last project, I decided to try and see if I could either fix it or make a new center piece that these replaceable heads could screw into that would then work. So as best I can tell, and I think it's right because it screws in, these are M8 125 threads in the head. And when I tested, hold on. And when I tested one of the plastic ends that has the long bolt section that's not screwed up like the brass one was, that screwed right in fine on the back side of the M8125. I bought a set of M8125 taps. So there's the much slanted, slightly less slanted, almost hole bottoming set. So I'm going to see if, one, I can either clean up or deepen the threads in this head. It may be hardened, that may not be possible. Or get this handle out, which may not be possible, because it looks like it was pressed up in there tight enough that it had little bits of metal that sheared off of the head. And then if I can get this off, I can try and make a new centerpiece that I attach to this somehow, and then these attach to. So now I'm using the M8 125 tap to clean up the both sides of the hammer, and that seemed to work pretty good. Well, using the one that's for the bottoming tap, I was able to get the threads to go the rest of the way down, and the ones with the deeper threads screw on like the plastic ones. And that seems fairly secure. But it's too bad I didn't know this before I screwed up the brass part. Even the aluminum one kind of does, but it seems like it rotates and wobbles when I put the aluminum one on. So the aluminum one goes down, but I'm pretty sure, oh, there we go. See that gap that still shows up in between? Yeah, that's not ideal. So the aluminum one is still not sitting down in tight, so the only thing that's touching is the threads. So you can see there's a gap there. Let me try screwing it down a little bit more if it'll go. So the issue is the spot there, right there, that I marked with the Sharpie. That is the spot that touches first, and everywhere else is loose. So I'm going to try taking that and filing that corner to get it such that it seats flat, and see if that will help. Now to try and file that did not help. A little bit of filing didn't really help. I think the issue is the threads. They probably screwed this up and made it similar with the brass. They made the center shaft too small, and so when they cut the threads in, just the very tips of the threads engage versus the whole thing, and I don't, because there's only like 2 threads on there, maybe 2 to 3 at max. They really should have had a longer shaft on that to do better, but then again, they didn't have these down the whole way, so now the threads are down the whole way, and you could take a longer piece, and if this was longer, then, you know, it would have more to hold on and more to do better. So I think that's what the problem is. So I don't know if I can make one of these or not. I don't necessarily have aluminum of that size. I have bigger. I have this kind. I have this size, which that's a bit smaller. But smaller is better than too big. So theoretically I could cut a section of this off and maybe use the lathe and make a new thing. I don't know. We'll try it. What's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work, right? So maybe I'll try that. Alright, so first let's cut the end off. And I had to move it over because that didn't quite fit. And then we're going to face it off in the lathe, and then we're going to just get a section cleaned up that I can put in there so that I can work on the other side. And now I'm just trying to work the size down and figure out what the size should be. And that's going okay. It's different working in a smaller piece of aluminum because the only one I've worked it for in the past was a much wider one. So this actually shrinks much faster because there's less material to take off. It's amazing how that works. I still used the same things, and then I decided I need to get closer, so I need to switch to the jaws. So I switched back to the other jaws, and that worked. And it took me 2 tries to get the jaws in at the right thing so they synced up in the center, but that still worked. So now I'm working down, the side that's in the jaws is the side for the head, and this is trying to get the shaft right. And it's hard getting really tiny things when a fraction of a millimeter, but I think I got it close. And now I'm trying the cutoff blade and had to reorganize things, but that ended up working. Well, that didn't turn out too bad. I don't have a slant. I don't have a slanted front because this one is rounded. But I have a cylinder and I have a post, and the post is a bit longer than the original, which is what I wanted. I think I got this the right size. We'll see. One problem is when I ordered, I hadn't planned on doing it this weekend. This was supposed to be next weekend, but the project for this weekend got put off. So this one got bumped up, and I don't have the die for this size. That's coming Thursday, and this is Sunday, so I don't have that yet. And I don't use metric enough to bother going to try and buy another one at the store just to get it quicker. So we'll do this as a part 1 and go from there. But that worked pretty good. Overall, I was happy with that result. I do like the new cutoff wheel, I should say the cutoff bar. That worked really good. It had no wobble and it did its thing. I did have to play around with this and adjust things because the cutoff bar was conflicting against this part, cross slide something. And so when I tried to slide it down to the proper depth, it was hitting. So, but if I move it to this way instead of tilted, it was able to drop down past here to the right amount to be able to go in and hit the center. But that all worked pretty good. And I got a small amount of chips, way smaller than before. And most of it's that. That's still cool. It worked. I like the lathe. I'm getting used to switching things and doing the stuffs and all that. Oh, and I made a hole in my cardboard backer because that way, when I turn this down, that works better. So now this is proper tightness, and I have my backer to keep the chips from just flying off everywhere. That works pretty good. So, very cool. So far so good.